Hello, welcome to Anita the Pedagogue channel. Today we continue with our poetry analysis. We are looking at the poem Nightfall in Soweto by Oswald Mbuyiseni Mtshali. Let's look at our lesson objectives. We are going to look at a biography of the poet, the title, the structure of the poem, a stanza-by-stanza analysis, the literary devices, the themes, and some likely examination questions. Let's begin with a biography of Oswald Mbuyiseni Mtshali. He is a South African poet and writer. He was born on January 17, 1940 in Vriend, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. He grew up in Soweto, Johannesburg, during the apartheid era, which heavily influenced his writing. Mtshali worked as a factory worker and a messenger before he became a writer. His first collection of poems, Sounds of a Cowhide Drum, was published in 1971 and won the Olive Schreiner Prize. The collection was notable for its depiction of the struggles of Black South Africans during apartheid. Mtshali's other works include Fire Flames, published in 1980, The Rhythm of Marching Feet, published in 1981, and Unpublished Poems, which was published in 1993. He also wrote plays including The Return of Elvis Lupisani in 1974 and The Hill, which was published in 1985. Mtshali's writing has been recognized with numerous awards, including the Order of Ikamanga in silver from South African government in 2004. He is considered one of the most significant African poets of the 20th century. Let's go on and look at the title Nightfall in Soweto. The word nightfall symbolizes trouble, problems, or pain. This title implies the challenges, pains, and troubles that hit Soweto, a suburb of Johannesburg, South Africa. The poem is a powerful commentary on the struggles faced by Black South Africans during the apartheid era. Let's move on and look at the poem Nightfall in Soweto. Nightfall comes like a dreaded disease seeping through the pulse of a healthy body and ravaging it beyond repair. A murderous hand, lurking in the shadows, clasping the dagger, strikes down the helpless victim. I am the victim. I am slaughtered every night in the streets. I am cornered by the fear gnawing at my timid heart. In my helpless, I languish. Man has ceased to be man. Man has become beast. Man has become prey. I am the prey. I am the quarry to be run down by the marauding beast, let loose by cruel nightfall from his cage of death. Where is my refuge? Where am I safe? Not in my matchbox house, where I barricade myself against nightfall. I tremble at his crouching footsteps. I quake at his deafening knock at the door. Open up, he barks like a rabid dog, thirsty for my blood. Nightfall, nightfall, you are my mortal enemy. But why were you ever created? Why can't it be daytime? Daytime forevermore. This is a very beautiful poem written by Mtshali. Let's look at some very important parts of the structure of the poem. So this poem is a 36-line poem and is divided into 8 stanzas. It is a free-verse poem. It has no rhymes but some rhythm due to the use of parallelism. And this is because there's been some parts. In stanza 3, for example, we have I am the victim, I am slaughtered. The repetition of I am cornered by the fear leads to some form of rhythm. Also, man has ceased to be man. Man has become beast. Man has become prey. All these are examples of some repetitions of structural forms that has led to some rhythm in the poem, even though it has no end rhymes or rhyming words. And so parallelism can be said to be the repetition of grammatical elements in a piece of writing to create a harmonious effect. Let's go on now and look at other important details about the structure of the poem. It can be noted that the poems have very short lines, and the diction is simple and has emotional vocabulary such as ravaging, marauding, dagger, slaughter, beast, and rabid dog. There is also the use of imagery. The last 3 lines of the poem are rhetorical questions about nightfall. Let's go on now and look at the analysis of stanza 1. But let's take a quick background because this poem has a setting during the apartheid era in Soweto. Now, apartheid was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that was enforced by the National Party government of South Africa. During the time, Black South Africans were forced to live in separate areas from white South Africans and were subject to various forms of discrimination and oppression. In Soweto, which is a township in Johannesburg, Black South Africans were forced to live in overcrowded and underdeveloped areas and were often subject to police brutality and violence. So in the very first stanza, we see that the speaker of the poem describes nightfall as a dreaded disease that seeps into the body and ravages it beyond repair. This metaphor sets the tone for the rest of the poem, suggesting that the violence and fear of the night are like a sickness that cannot be cured. The setting of the poem is Soweto. Now, Mtshali serves as the persona and narrates the exact feelings nightfall brought to the Black South Africans in Soweto in this poem. And the period of apartheid began in 1948 and lasted until the early 1990s. Let's look at our second stanza. In the second stanza, the speaker of the poem introduces the idea of the murderer's hand lurking in the shadows and striking down helpless victims. This imagery is compelling, suggesting that violence is always present, waiting to pounce on its victims. This indicates the brutality meted out to the vulnerable Black South Africans, which caused them harm and the death of some victims because of the use of murderous hand. It means some people lost their life due to the brutality and crimes that were meted out against them. In the third stanza, using the first person narrative I, the speaker identifies himself as the victim who is slaughtered every night in the streets. He is cornered by fear and helplessness. He is unable to escape the violence surrounding him. The oppression and inhuman acts that are meted out to him bruises his dignity. The projection of the humiliating acts meted out to the Black South Africans is highlighted through the speaker's experience. The speaker in the first stanza suggests that man has ceased to be a man and become a beast, a predator on the hunt for prey. The speaker describes his oppressors as men who lack human morals but have become beasts, hunting their vulnerable prey. The prey here refers to the speaker, representing the Black South Africans, and the beast refers to his oppressors. In the first stanza, the speaker identifies himself as the prey and a quarry to be run down by the marauding or prowling beasts, which has been let loose by cruel nightfall. The speaker sees himself as a Black South African in Soweto who is pursued by his oppressors during nightfall or during the evening time. The violence that is experienced by the speaker is what causes him to refer himself as a prey. In the sixth stanza, the speaker asks where he can find refuge and safety. He cannot find it in his matchbox house, referring to the ghetto or the small house he lives in, where he virtually hides himself against the nightfall or where he goes to rest during the evening. In the seventh stanza, the fear of violence is so great that the speaker trembles at the sound of footsteps and quakes at the deafening knock at the door, bidding him to open up. He compared this to the bark of a rabid dog, and a rabid dog is a mad or a sick dog. And in addition, he says that this dog is thirsty for his blood. In the eighth stanza, he uses an apostrophe to address Nightfall as his mortal enemy. When we talk about an apostrophe, it is a literary device that refers to a speech or an address to a person who is not present or to something inhuman. So referring to Nightfall, which is an inhuman object, as a mortal enemy, it's an apostrophe. He asks why it was ever created and why it can't be daytime forevermore. This suggests deep despair and hopelessness, as if there is no escape from the violence and the fear that pervade the night. The speaker highlights when the violence and evil during apartheid will cease forever. The speaker yearns for daytime, which symbolizes peace, joy, happiness, as opposed to Nightfall, which symbolizes violence, pain, death, and destruction. At this point, let's go on and look at the literary devices in the poem Nightfall in Soweto. So there's been the use of simile. Nightfall comes like a dreaded disease. He barks like a rabid dog. There's been the use of metaphor. Man has ceased to be man. Man has become beast. Man has become prey, comparing directly man to cease to be man, to become beast and prey. I am the prey. I am the quarry to be run down, not in my matchbox. And here, matchbox is referring to his house. So he's comparing his house to a matchbox directly. There's also been the use of allusion. The poem refers to the violence and fear prevailing in Soweto, South Africa during apartheid. So the poem alludes. The poem's title, which has Soweto, refers to the fact that the poem is set in Soweto. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's move on to literary devices. Repetition. Man and Nightfall, these words have been repeated. There's been the use of synecdoche. Synecdoche is a literary device in which a part of something is substituted for the whole, or a whole represents a part. In this case, a murderer's hand, referring to the perpetrators of the crime. Knowing that my timid heart is referring to his whole body and not just his heart. There's been the use of onomatopoeia. He barks like a rabid dog. Barks is onomatopoeia. Alliteration. The repetition of the initial consonant vowels in words. So Nightfall comes like a dreaded disease. So the repetition of the D in dreaded and in disease. There's also the use of irony, because it's ironic that night, which is usually a time of rest, a calm and quiet time, where a person renews his or her energy, is the most fearful or dreaded time in Soweto, full of violence and brutality. The use of apostrophe, the mention of Nightfall, Nightfall, you are my enemy. The use of rhetorical questions. Where is my refuge? Where am I safe? Why were you ever created? Why can't it be daytime? Daytime forevermore. Also, there's the use of personification. Nightfall comes like a dreaded disease. A murderous hand lurking in the shadows, clasping the dagger, strikes down the helpless victim. There's also the use of parallelism. I am the victim. I am slaughtered every night. I am the prey. Man has ceased to be man. Man has become beast. Man has become prey. So the repetition of I am, and man has. Let's go on and look at the themes. Let's look at the theme powerlessness or hopelessness. The poem also portrays the powerlessness of the speaker and the people of Soweto. The speaker is cornered by fear, gnawing at their timid heart and languishing in helplessness. The speaker barricades or covers themselves against Nightfall in their matchbox house, but it provides no refuge. The speaker is powerless against the marauding beast let loose by the cruel Nightfall from his cage of death, referring to the people that oppressed him. The rhetorical question, but why were you ever created? Why can't it be daytime forevermore? Reflects the speaker's hopelessness and despair, lack of hope. The crime The violence and murder that the white minority used to oppress Black South Africans caused them to be powerless and hopeless. The dignity of the oppressed people of Soweto was not dignifying and made them doubt their humanity and that of their oppressors. The speaker reflects on his experiences during apartheid in this poem and his despair, his lack of hope for a time when Soweto will experience peace, devoid of the violence of apartheid. Let's look at the theme of violence. The poem also depicts the violence that characterizes life in Soweto. The murderous hand lurking in the shadows, clasping the dagger, strikes down the helpless victim. The speaker identifies himself as the victim that is slaughtered every night in the streets. The fact that man has ceased to be man and has become beast. His oppressors are no more human but have become beasts. And he has also become like a prey or a game being hunted. The speaker also compares himself to a quarry that is going to be run down by a beast that is hunting. And all this usually happens at night time. The violence is further emphasized by the beast deafening knock at the door, barking like a rabid dog thirsty for the speaker's blood. The speaker paints an emotional image of how the people in Soweto are murdered in cold blood and brutalized at night by their oppressors. Even though they are a majority, they suffer and are treated with extreme violence. When at night they go to sleep in their mud box houses, that is in their ghettos or in their tiny homes, they are still pursued. Let's look at the theme of fear. The poem portrays the pervasive fear that grips the speaker and the people of Soweto. Nightfall is likened to a dreaded disease that seeps through the pores of a healthy body and ravages it beyond repair. This is about how the crimes that were meted out to them during Nightfall destroyed them completely. I tremble at his crouching footsteps. I quake at his deafening knock at the door. Open up, he barks like a rabid dog, thirsty for my blood. So the speaker is cornered by fear, and this fear eats right into his soul and makes him helpless. The fear is palpable as the speaker trembles at the crunching footsteps of the marauding beast let loose by cruel Nightfall from his cage of death. The fear is heightened as the beast barks like a rabid dog thirsty for the speaker's blood. So, the speaker's fear is reflected in the rhetorical questions. Where is my refuge? Where am I safe? And this is because there is death knocking at the speaker's door. Let's go on now and look at some likely examination questions. What is the allusion in the poem and how does it contribute to the overall meaning of the poem? How does the speaker describe the experience of Nightfall and what effect does this description have on the reader? Identify and explain one theme of the poem. How does the speaker characterize himself in the poem and what is the significance of this characterization? How does the poem address issues of power and oppression? How does the poem use language and imagery to create a sense of fear and danger? What is the significance of the line, "Where is my refuge? Where am I safe?" How does the poem address the theme of hopelessness? How does the poem use repetition to create a sense of urgency and desperation? What is the significance of the poem's final lines and how do they contribute to the poem's overall meaning? I hope you try your hands on these questions. Do like, share, comment, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more literature analysis like this.